Coming up, we talked about the best of the best. Now we look at the best of the rest, with the Brooklyn Nets needing to wait that extra pick at 5 before they can jump on the board at 6. Is there a chance that a player like Kanipple, that a player like Johnson might be missed out on as the Nets prepare for the rebuild? We dive in coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends. It is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And Doug, having gone through the top 4 players, whether or not there's some debate around Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe, we know, as you can see watching on YouTube, the debate at 5 is who goes there? And will it matter to the Brooklyn Nets depending on how they've stacked up their prospects? This is where it becomes increasingly more interesting because of the way the lottery odds play out.
Yeah, we know the Nets can't pick at 5 because of the way things break down. So the way, they're going to either jump into the top 4 or it's going to go, they're going to get pushed down to go and this is why we see and just as a quick, catch up on the lottery odds here. The reason the Nets have a 30% chance of drafting 7th and basically a 20% chance of drafting 8th is, even though that they're the 6th overall odds, is because either they get into the top 4 because one of those top 4 things becomes theirs, or it doesn't, and they don't end up, their name isn't drawn there, and then they just get pushed down for any team that drafted that jumped them, right? Because then after the top 4,
guaranteed to live at the top of the draft board, right? So they can't get bucked out because somebody jumps them. Brooklyn Nets and every other team behind them, by the way, they can get pushed down.
Exactly. So if another team jumps them, we know they're jumping down. They're getting pushed down to 7th just out of the gate, right? And the odds are kind of stacked up like that's going to happen, or it's going to be them where they get into the top 4. So it's kind of, this is why if you just look at the way the odds break down, they have a basically 50% chance of drafting 7th or 8th, because it's essentially saying there's a 50% chance of one of those teams that's underneath them jumping over them and pushing them down 1 slot, right? So they're not going to end up at 5th, but they can end up at the top 4, cannot end up at 5th. Maybe they end up at 6th, most likely, or like the 50% chance right now is they draft 7th or 8th. So hopefully everyone is caught up exactly on sort of like the way the odds break down here and why it's like that. And like I said, it's just only because they just draft 1 through, they go for the lottery 1 through 4, and then you just go by record. But you basically go by record after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, by the way, as we always say, the best way to do a draft of any kind in sports is just make it super confusing and have weird gaps and percentages all over the place. So you can't just have the debate about, where are we going to land? Is it going to be crazy? No. We're going to tear this thing out in a beautifully structured mess that everyone's going to hate.
So clear, dude. So clear. So easy. All right. So anyway,
don't drop. We talked for years on this. Sorry. We talked for years on this about all you need is a degree in rocket science or physics to figure out the way these contracts break down and how the money spreads out and why it's good or bad. But don't worry. It's totally plain to see, understandable for the layman.
Yeah, just spend your whole life studying and you'll be all caught up. So so that's basically how it works. So anyway, as we get to the 5th and 6th spot in the draft, I mean, I would say there's probably 3 players that kind of slot into this range right now. If you're looking at different mock drafts, I think this is going to probably kind of jostle around as we see the way the draft unfolds. But we're going to talk Kanipple and Trey Johnson today because these are 2 guys, and Cayman Malyach we'll talk about tomorrow, and we'll fill out sort of the rest of the board here as we go. But if we're looking at 5 and 6, there probably will be a decision around these 2 guys, and maybe Cayman as we get into it. But it's an interesting spot here for where the Nets are going to fall. I do think one of these guys will be available for them in this range, even if they maybe if they even get to 6th. I mean, or even 7th, maybe one of these guys, because I could see someone getting up there. But we'll start with Kanipple as just like an overall prospect. It's an interesting play. He kind of seems like a Sean Marksian kind of guy in that there's a lot of different basketball stuff going on. I don't know if the ceiling is crazy high, but the floor seems high enough. I've seen even Cam Johnson comps to him along the way here, and just in terms of how he plays. He's probably a little better on ball, maybe slightly worse of a shooter. It's hard to know exactly. But is this a guy? We'll start here. is this a guy with Kanipple from Duke? If this is where the Nets landed in the draft, is it like mission accomplished for them as like a tanking season, or is it just like too hard to sort of even think about a scenario where this isn't one of the four guys that we've already discussed in Flag, Harper, Ace, and VJ? Like, is this just too much of a sort of like always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of situation?
Well, I'll go ahead and throw in the Ringers list of player comps you mentioned about Cam Johnson, whatever. But how about this? Ready? If I said this, you've missed out on the top four guys. You didn't make it. But after 5, the 6th overall pick, you're sitting there, and you could get a Wally Zerbiak, Evan Fournier, Gordon Hayward, Luke Kennard type player. How would that resonate for you, Doug, if you're a fan base that's desperate to have a cornerstone franchise player? They say, we got kind of a Gordon Hayward-esque guy here that I think could really be good, right? So I offer that up to let you know, yes, this would, I think when it comes specifically to Kanipple, I would say this is a problem if this ends up being the guy the Nets go with from a fan base perspective. I don't think the fan base is going to go, all right, baby, we can envision X. I think he's talented. We'll talk about his game. We'll talk about the good and the bad of it and where he has to improve. But no, this is not going to be it. And I think we'll probably have different conversations about other prospects that whether or not I think they're likely to be cornerstone guys from a fan base perspective would be much more exciting for the Nets to draft at the 6th spot.
You get an elite shooter out of the gate. And look, if you got Gordon Hayward, I think you'd be pretty happy. But like you get an absolute elite shooter.
The largest comp they give them, yeah.
It was I get it, but the other guy, it's like it doesn't outweigh the rest of the list for sure. So I'm with you on that one. Yeah, and I think that might be like doing them a little bit of a disservice, that overall list. But so anyway, like I think that like you're getting a lights out shooter for sure. The guy can absolutely shoot. We know that shooting plays in the NBA. He has the requisite size, even if it like doesn't like jump off the page. It probably plays a little smaller than a 6'7" frame, I think, overall.
Yep.
But if you're a 6'7" guy who can shoot, like that is for sure stuff that can live in the NBA for a long time. Like he did try to finish at the rim enough. I mean, it's college stuff, so it's like a little hard to judge. And again, it didn't jump off the screen at all. But like, I don't know. I do want to believe that if you can shoot, you can stick around the NBA for a long time. And I think if you're starting there, like that is a good spot. Like if you're 6'7" and you can be a 40% from beyond the arc guy and, plus 90% of the line, and you don't mind inviting some contact. He did get into the post at times. Again, it was like sometimes just against smaller, like less athletic guys. I think there's a world where you can kind of squint and see that. Does it have the same kind? Are you picturing the same kind of upside as Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe? I mean, no world where you are. Right? Like there's just no world where you're like putting those guys at all into the same tier. So I don't think this isn't the guy. It's clearly not a guy that like you think of as a franchise changing guy. Would he be a floor raising guy because you like made a trade for someone else and you had like lineups with like Giannis and Kanipple and Cam Johnson or something like that? Like, okay, that's probably not too bad, right? Like that's something you could probably work with, that kind of shooting. And maybe if you had someone else that could defensively anchor. But no, there's for sure a tier drop in terms of disappointment from these guys. And I think Kanipple is like a totally fine NBA player. Would have gone high, for sure would have gone higher than 5th or 6th in last year's draft. Probably still would have been like the top 2 or 3, right? So it's not taking a dig at him. It's mostly like, it's just like, comparison's the thief of joy. Like when you look at those top 4 guys, you just have significantly less questions about it.
And when you look at his own teammate, right? Like we look at the guy that he played with on the court in Cooper Flag, that is the transcendent talent of this draft class and the one that everyone's hoping against odds the Nets can spike and land, right? So it'll be interesting to see the way we talk about him. There's things will come up here in a second on the defensive end, areas that he would have to improve. I probably land on as we get to Trey Johnson, which represents kind of that athletic upside, maybe untapped potential inside of a player like that. That's the comp you end up with. This is, we keep talking about ceilings and floors, and whether or not Kanipple we looked at as safe floor, but is the ceiling high enough to warrant being picked 6th overall? We'll continue that side of the conversation and look at Trey Johnson coming up here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, let you know this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, the world's made a lot of progress when it comes to mental health. There's still a long way to go. Too many people still avoid therapy because they're afraid of being judged. Truth is, taking care of your mental health should be just as normal as going to the gym or eating healthy. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's normalize getting help and encouraging everyone to prioritize their well-being. And when people feel supported, families, workplaces, entire communities are better off for it. Look, this isn't just about dealing with big problems. It's about maintaining your mental health wellness. And just like you do with your own physical health, you got to compare these two things, folks. They're all so important. And when you're talking about the full version of yourself, we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right. As we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, taking a look at the draft after the top four, if the Nets don't spike and get a little bit higher than where the current percentages say, what's the best bet for them at the 6th overall pick? And we also remind you, stick around. Third segment, big breaking news for the show as a whole, and we'll go ahead and get to that as well. But when we look at Trey Johnson, if we're going to compare him to Kanipple and saying, here we are, we're at 6, and they're both available. Let's assume that some other player goes at 5 when the Nets don't pick, right? Because then I think it actually makes it more interesting. You mentioned that Kanipple might be like a Sean Marks type of guy, but Trey Johnson, once upon a time, was right there at near the top of the board after that first group. VJ Edgecombe moved up the board. Trey Johnson, depending on where you look, has moved down a little bit. Is he still exciting to you as a prospect the way that he was probably 2 months ago relative to college performance and everything else that goes along with it?
Yeah, I was trying to think of I should have gone back. We did a half an episode about him during last summer when we started looking at the draft heading into it. And I actually don't think my opinion of this is too much changed. At the time it was the scoring was going to translate. This is before he went to Texas. Like the scoring was going to flash at Texas, and there was going to be size concerns on his frame, and maybe just if the overall game was going to get there in just like a well-rounded game. I think that I pretty much stick in the same place here. He'll be able to score in the NBA 100%. That is, I don't think, really a hot take. He'll the shooting and just the overall sort of understanding the space, especially when it comes to getting a perimeter shot, will play. And his size too, he's a long wingspan, has a high release that looks absolutely perfect when he shoots. He's got kind of everything you would want from a shooter and an outside scorer. I think the same way with Kanipple, I said the shooting will play in the NBA. Trey Johnson's shooting will 100% play in the NBA. It's the other part, which is has dropped him a little bit, is the other stuff didn't really come around as much in college. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell if it's system or whatever. Does it look different if he's playing with Cooper Flag behind him, defensively? Probably, right? So I think Con probably got helped a lot on defense because when Cooper Flag is behind you cleaning everything else up, you're not going to get evaluated the same way.
Molly watch there as well, right? So these guys.
Sorry, he's got two. Right. We got two the best defenders in college basketball sitting behind you. You're going to be just graded. You're going to get graded a little differently because you can just do different things. It's sometimes I want to think about what Trey Johnson would look like in that system, and maybe the concerns wouldn't be exactly the same. So I want to be really, really fair about that part of it. Mm-hmm. I think I kind of land in the same place, is that the shooting is there. I think the athleticism is there. I think that if you can fill out the frame a little bit, and I think it seemed like he did this year, get a little bigger, I think you're looking at a really good player. He's a guy I could see falling a little bit and then teams regretting it later. Right? Or I don't know. I could go back and forth on this one. This one's close for me. I do not think my evaluation has changed too much from last summer, which was, it looks like these things are going to work. And if it comes to playmaking, finishing the rim did not really improve at Texas at all. The court vision, it was just kind of shoot or be done with it and that stuff. And again, sometimes it's hard to fault guys for this because it's I don't know, you're playing in college and you're the best scorer. So what are you going to do? Not shoot? Yeah. Right. So I really never want to blame guys for stuff like this, but I just think that he falls into the same sort of bucket as, this is why there's this one step below, because it's you can picture one thing they do really pretty well, and it's hard to exactly see how it's all going to translate to the NBA level. And so I don't know. I'm getting to be a little wishy-washy on him. I don't know if you're more excited that who makes a splashier impact day one with the team. it's got to be Trey, right? I don't think
Yeah.
is that even like a hot take?
Right? So
I
for all the
don't,
conversation, all the conversation that we're having about it, and there's things about his frame and then defensively, and that's such a secondary kind of thing. We're talking about prospects because you really want, what is the wow factor going to be? Trey Johnson will be a wow factor, right? We talked about this with some of the top 4 guys. Day one walking in the door is when we're looking at the top of the board. We say, well, Dylan Harper obviously like his game, but VJ Edgecombe just might be like sexier and more fun to see right out of the gate. It doesn't mean he's the better player, and I would want Edgecombe over Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, right? Like all these names we throw around. Trey Johnson would be more fun because I think for a team like the Brooklyn Nets, you put him in there, get the ball into his hands, and let him kind of go wild with it. I think there'd be some sloppy play. I think there'd be some turnovers offensively, and then there'd be some real flashy highlight moments that, by the way, you can probably live on for the first year of his NBA career if you think that underneath the Brooklyn Nets and underneath the coaching staff, they can figure out some of these other things. Oddly enough, something we haven't brought up about some of these prospects is when we think about the Jordi Fernandez system and expectations, I do think there is a world where a guy like Trey Johnson and other there'll be a number of I think prospects that'll fall into this category where the expectations that Jordi Fernandez has put on young players, we saw this in year 1, that could be interesting, right? Because he did it with Cam Thomas. Now he's already a multi-year starter, but a multi-year player in the NBA. But if Jordi Fernandez puts barriers for playing time in front of guys in terms of what he needs to see from you on both ends of the floor, then Trey Johnson might be in a hard spot where he's getting some flash and he's getting some run, but he's also getting an earful and being told you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to sustain the role that you're going to have with us. So that part is a little bit of a push and pull here where Kanipple, I could see him getting into the rotation early under Jordi Fernandez, having a very clear role, even if it's not the most exciting version of what we think the Nets can do in the first round.
Yeah, I think defensively, like I think the energy is there. I think that it's just one of these things. Like defense is hard too. I just think that like this is kind of the stuff that kind of ends taking up a long time to come around. Good things in his favor too comes from basketball family, right? Like dad was an NBA pick. Like mom, I think was like she a college basketball star. I know he comes from a basketball family. And so like there's this part of it. And then there's this other part where it's like I can picture so funny if you look at his stats, like you can picture the shot creation, especially around the arc, like being fine. And then, but if you look at his college stats, like the rim, just overall rim pressure wasn't totally there. Like he made a lot of threes, but actually wasn't like not that efficient overall field goal percentage, like 43% from the field, 40% from 3. They're like, okay, well, that means a lot of tough shots in the mid range and like stuff just at the rim wasn't going in necessarily and didn't get to the line a ton. So it's like, I don't know. I get a little concerned when I see that stuff like from him overall. I think that his stuff ends up translating better, and I think he'll probably end up coming around. These are just close. It's hard. Look, whenever you get into this part of the draft too, these guys aren't going to be perfect players. Like they're just not going to be. There's always going to be some other little thing happening here, and if there weren't, they'd be number 1 picks, right? Like if there weren't, they'd be like number 1 overall, number 2 overall pick. It's just like, okay, well, what's not going to come around? Now, what happens a lot of times with these guys is one of these things does come around, and you're wondering why they went 6th or 7th. This is like so. This is what makes it hard. It's like you get 3 years from now, and it's like, oh, dude, the finishing at the rim got there. It's like, well, he should have gone top 2 overall, right? Or Khan like just like ends up playing a little bigger than his body, and like you're like, oh, he turned out that he could actually run a little point guard, and we just didn't see it as much at Duke, and now all of a sudden he should have gone higher. Like this always just happens where one of these other things you just didn't see does come around, not for every player, but for a group of players here, and that's just why they fall at this part of the draft, and then something else that you were like wondering about ends up being much better later. Does that make sense? And it's just sometimes hard. I hate to we're not great at predicting it. Neither is the NBA, or else this stuff would be chalk every time, and they'd all just be exactly floated into the exact place they should have been. So, yeah.
And I think a bit of what goes on when it comes to Trey Johnson specifically, we always talk about like high-powered offensive players, the college level, and then the other aspects you want to focus on going forward. The creativity with the ball in his hand, that's something that like you read certain write-ups about and says that actually could be a part that grows and is more valuable at the NBA level. But at the college level, what are you most concerned about? Making sure you show off that you can be a high-level scorer, because that's one of the first boxes, the box, to get checked when you're going from college to the pros. Coming up here in a second, we'll decide whether or not we prefer one or the other if it's the 6th overall pick for the Brooklyn Nets, and also break a little bit of news for the Locked On Nets podcast. We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, Tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Look, you ever check that bank account and wonder where'd all my money go? Then maybe you're dining out, maybe it's online shopping, maybe it's entertainment. It's easy to lose track. This is where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over those finances. Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, your spending in one place. And you stop managing your money. You start building that wealth, baby. You're going to start using Monarch. You're going to realize how much you're spending, maybe on food delivery. Maybe it's on some of these apps that you just kind of lose control of. You're going to start budgeting smarter and saving more. I'm getting choked up. I love Monarch Money. It's all in one convenience. You're not going to be juggling multiple apps. You can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending. I'm going to land the plane and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com.
All right. So as we tie a pretty little bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, we also finally pay off talking about a big announcement for us on the show, which is tying a pretty little bow with our time as the hosts of the Locked On Nets podcast. Doug, Nori, and I will be parting ways with the show as of May 30th. So we're kicking off our final month of coverage. I'll let Doug talk about some of the reasons why. I mean, we'll batter it all around for sure. But for me personally, as weird as it is to talk about personal stuff on the podcast, we usually keep very net-centric. This has been by far one of the best professional and personal experiences I have ever had. I've had the opportunity to cover multiple NBA drafts at the Barclays Center, meet young prospects, started their NBA careers. I've connected with, worked with people across this network and also the industry that have been amazing individuals to get to know. And there are two biggest things that I wanted to make sure I mentioned as we start our final month. The first of which is being able to do this show with the fan base. We have had incredible interactions over the years, debating, arguing, right? And also getting support from fans. The amount of times that we've gotten individual messages or people in the live chats on post-game coverages we did talking about how we became an integral part of their daily routine. Really, I know for Doug as well, was such a significant thing. It, hundreds, thousands, however many people chose to tap into our show. I can't begin to express how much that meant that people chose to spend their time with us. And the other part of it is, and I swear this sounded more eloquent when I was doing it in my own head leading up to today, has been the opportunity to sit here and connect with Doug every day. We, over the last 6+ years, my life personally and professionally has gone through a lot of changes. I became friends with, basically feel like I've become family with Doug. I've watched his family grow. I've watched his life change. And over the years, we've been able to have really incredible conversations around the podcast, not about basketball. And it has been one of the most significant friendships that I've developed in my adult life. So, not only to the fans and not only to the network, which I appreciate so much, more than anything, I've appreciated being able to spend time with a friend and someone who I have grown incredibly close to and fond of over these years. So, thank you to Doug for letting me be a part of this show. Something that he, by the way, came to me over 6 years ago and said, I have a wacky idea about doing a show covering the Nets. And as someone who had plenty to say, but nowhere to direct it, putting a podcast microphone in front of me was the easiest way to get some of those things out of my head and into the airwaves. So I'll let Doug chop in here and save me from myself.
No, yeah. So we've been talking about this for a while. It's just sometimes these things are just doing a podcast every day for a team. It's not, no one would call it hard work, but it is work and it takes time. And there's just a time where you've done it for a long time and it's just time to move on. And I think that, I kind of would mirror a lot of things that Adam said. We started, 6 years ago and Locked On Nets went on the air in 2020. And it's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun just doing this every single day. Has the team always been held up its end of the bargain? Now we joke that they haven't, but whatever. That's just like the nature of nature of fandom. Just with both of Adam and I, with our work schedules and just the time that it takes to put into like a quality show that we both be proud of, it just gets increasingly difficult to like sort of be able to promise that time on a night in and night out basis, right? From my standpoint, I've been at the NBA grind for more than 10 years now. And when you're on the NBA, when you make a job out of like either projecting NBA or talking about the NBA, you promise to give a lot of your life back. Like you promise to lock up, just basically take away evenings for your whole life. It takes away, time with your kids in the evening. It takes away just things that go on to the night. It takes away Friday nights and Saturdays where you want to be going out doing other things and you're watching basketball. It's a total gift to be able to do it. And 10 years later, it's like, okay, I'm not sure we can just continue on this ad infinitum. It has been awesome. It was not easy. We have like a release that something we typed up to kind of put out there tomorrow. It was like not easy writing, man. It's like Adam and I talk every single day. We talk to someone every single day for 5 years. You get kind of used to talking to someone every single day for 5 years, even if it's just about the Nets. And it just wasn't even more about that. But ultimately, when it came to just the commitment and the time and like what it would be needed to put in a show that we were both proud of, I think we just saw that it was just going to become increasingly difficult year over year over year to be able to do that. It's actually really not Nets related at all. And actually, it's funny about that as we kind of like wound up landing the plane here, but we actually were really cognizant of when we said we were going to do this because we didn't want it to signal that it had anything to do with where the Nets drafted. Because we were like, well,
we thought about doing live on lottery night, right? Just based on when the ping pong balls fell, literally mid-lottery.
It's funny to think about that. Yeah, it's funny to think about that because we were like, well, and one of our channel producers kind of laughed at us when we said it. We're like, yeah, you don't get it, man. So forget it. But like, you don't understand sort of like what we're kind of thinking about here. But when you're thinking about sort of like the forward facing thing to fans, and we've had a lot of fans. I mean, we have lots more people talk to me about the Nets than I like ever thought would be humanly possible. Yeah. I love every single second of it. I know it's like a little trolly at times, or it's just like tongue in cheek. I think it's awesome. Like I'll miss that. I hope it doesn't go away totally. But like these things are really, really important to us. And I think the sort of like the attitude or the respect of fans and everyone listening is really important to us too. And so when we were like, well, we should just say at the beginning of the month, rather than wait till like the last week, we should say it now so that if they get Cooper Flag or if they fall to 10th in the draft, it's not gonna be like, well, of course they got 10th. They were waiting to see what happened. It's like, no, it's just that has nothing to do with it. We've been talking, it's been something we've discussed for months and months and months now about like, how it would work. And when we ultimately thought about it, we're like the best way for it to work would just be to at the end of the month say that's it and we'll move on from there. So kind of just like a little look behind the curtains of how we did it. But overall, like I mirror everything that Adam said. It's a real gift to be able to get on and like get literally paid to talk about like basketball. Like very few people are put in that position. We're both acutely aware of that. And but at some point there's just sort of like a horizon on like with everything, business, life, family, all that other stuff. Like eventually they have to like just do something that kind of makes sense for everybody.
Should peel behind the curtain one last time as well and just let everybody know Doug and I are still going to get on and talk together. We're just not going to do it on, we're just going to do it like just on the phone. We'll just two guys gabbing away in the mornings, 5 days a week, just checking in and seeing how things are going. It was really, it was incredibly meaningful as well I think for myself to not host a Nets-based podcast without Doug. That mattered a lot to me as well, and something that I certainly thought about as we were closing in on it. That being the case, the good news is that's a month away. Boys and girls, We've got so much time and so many more prospects to talk about. We are excited to lead up to the lottery. And then there is a real world where it's two depressed guys after they land Cooper Flag, and we're just counting down the days until we leave the network, obviously. But
I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna tell you right now, this would be the best thing that ever happened to Nets Nation, because we're gonna say we're gonna leave and they're gonna get Cooper Flag.
Are we thinking now? Let's brass tacks this. Are we thinking that they will erect statues outside of Barclays Center, like in our honor, if they land Cooper Flag? Because there's a 1-to-1 here, right? Like that's pretty clear.
I plan to take credit no matter which way this goes. So like it's gonna go like, but no, I think the best thing that Nets fans can hope for is to say we made the decision before Cooper Flag came, and they're gonna get him, and we'll have planted our flag in the ground that like this is the end is coming May, and then we'll just watch all year and be like, man, the numbers would have been like triple. like who these would have just been absolutely triple numbers. No, but I'll say this will be the last thing I say. And then is that we talked about Adam and I talking a lot to each other, but I honestly, none of it, we're not able to keep talking unless like people out there are listening every single day. And so many people over the years have said this is the first thing they listen to and have like known the inside jokes and have texted me stuff and have DM'd me stuff. And I'm sure Adam too. And just like Twitter. And it's just like, they'll make a little comment where, they're listening, or like someone will come up to you and just like, you never know they listened. And then they just say, hey, I listen a lot. Those things matter a lot. And frankly, those are the things that like end up keeping you coming back every single day to do it. I know for me, watching those things go away will be very, very tough. But ultimately don't regret any of it because this has been a super fun ride. So anyway, any last words here? But we're still on for the rest of the month, but it was important for us to sort of announce
we are going to come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even though it's no, we'll be back all month long. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm sure, I don't know, maybe there'll be other things that'll come up over this month that we, end up referencing and talking about in terms of how much this has meant and all the good times that we've had over the past 6+ years. But no, that's it, man. The only thing left to do, you can do this. You land this plane every single time. Tell people what they do at the end of the episodes.
The Locked On Nets feed will still be on. So you're going to want to go no matter, and there might be a new host coming down the pike too, but you're going to want to make sure you hit like and subscribe wherever you listen. You're going to want to leave a YouTube comment after this show, and we'll respond to all the YouTube comments on this one specifically, even if it's mean, even if it's like, hey, good, like good, you got it. So make sure you like and subscribe.
Relief for some people. They could really have been waiting for this moment. Yeah.
No problem. I got thick skin. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you listen.
You know what's weird? Day by day, nothing seems to change, but pretty soon, everything is different. And that is Bill Watterson.
One of the all-time great poets. So we're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.